Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Daredevil number 170, cover dated May 1981, and this is the first time that the comic goes monthly on account of the success that Frank Miller as writer-artist has brought to the comic. And another thing he's bringing to his run on Daredevil is the Kingpin. So he's going to establish the Kingpin as a major villain and antagonist for Daredevil starting with this issue. And one of the things he was concerned about, he talked to John Byrne about this at the time, about bringing the Kingpin, who by that point was had been a third-rate Spider-Man villain and a bit of a joke, how he could make him menacing visually, and Byrne's suggestion was the way he would light him. And so we see that on the cover here with the uplighting for Kingpin and then all the shadow over his head and the top of his shoulders, making him quite menacing, looming over the city. So the cover by Frank Miller, inked by Klaus Janson, and the caption, "The Kingpin Must Die," turns out to be the title of the story inside as well, which Miller has cleverly and creatively worked into a billboard here behind Daredevil. And this particular splash page is an homage to Will Eisner, not to any specific work of Eisner's, but in general. It's very Eisnerian, in particular with the floating credits here. So Frank Miller, writer, penciler, Klaus Janson, inker, Glynis Swine and Joe Rosen credited as colors for colors and letters respectively, and Denny O'Neil here as editor, just kind of cut off, and we'll see that get picked up on the next page. So the narrative captions here: on this abandoned stretch of the West Side elevated highway, health-conscious New Yorkers enjoy an unobstructed 45-block run. From time to time, they are joined by one of the city's most famous native sons. Daredevil, of course, a great image of Daredevil and showing that Frank Miller really can do anatomy, as well as New York-specific, Manhattan-specific architecture. So you get this Art Deco detail on the elevated highway here, the iron barriers and concrete of that highway. Great detail here with the lampposts illuminating the billboards, so we see the light from this one, cast from this one, and even one here that we can't see as well. So great work on this splash page. And here, when I turn over the page, you can see the rest of the credits, the other half of Denny O'Neil's credit as editor, and even Jim Shooter there, just in case you thought he'd been forgotten about. So then Daredevil gets into a little conversation with this old-timer here who's going for his jog, and he basically boasts about how he makes the run every night down to the World Trade Center and back 5 whole miles. And Sonny, if that ain't being in shape, I don't know what is, but he's got to take a look at Daredevil going right up the span of the Canal Street Bridge, and he has to hand it to Daredevil that he is the superior athlete in that regard. And of course, Frank Miller at the time living in New York City, in Manhattan, up around the Hell's Kitchen area, and probably doing sketches of all these particular locations and then working them into the book at the time. This is a great panel here. At the highest point of the span, Daredevil leaps wildly, recklessly into space. For another, the sprawling city below would promise certain death, but he has no view to trouble him. He's blind. So we get a little primer here on the basics of Daredevil, including his billy club. He taps a hidden stud on the shaft, firing a 30-foot length of nylon cord. As always, his aim is infallible. The cable wraps tightly around the billboard's iron support beam, and once again, he's airborne. So this detail will get picked up on later in the story, and I'll point it out at the relevant part of the story. And then the old geezer here thinks, showy one that boy, liable to hurt himself with a crazy stunt like that. Still, he makes an old guy like myself feel a whole lot safer. City can be a rough place, and back in 1981 it was, by all accounts. And then the scene switches to a grimy saloon just off South Street, and it's Josie's. So we'll see that as a recurring location, Josie's Bar and Grill, throughout Miller's tenure on the comic. I love these full page horizontal panels We've got Turk here. He was last seen in issue 168, where he got beaten up by Daredevil, and he's boasting here that Daredevil ain't so tough, he just got lucky. His fellows here are incredulous, but he tells them, shut up, that bum cost me my job. So that's a reference again to 168 and the Volanquist caper. But who's listening with a glass of milk except DD himself? So he says to Turk here, hi Turk, let's talk. And Turk bolts. After his big talk, he bolts right over the bar and out the window. And that's going to be a recurring joke, broken windows at Josie's bar. And then he's out on the street and he grabs, what's the word again? He hijacks this Hackney cab. The cab driver tells Daredevil to get after it. You're a superhero, ain't you? And Daredevil tells him, you better get that muffler fixed. There are laws against noise pollution. So he's up and away using the billy club and the 30-foot nylon cord. Great acrobatics here from Frank Miller as Daredevil follows that distinctive broken muffler to track the cab. And this is a great sequence where he jumps down on the bonnet of the cab and kicks Turk in the face right through the windscreen. That's amazing. And then he hops out and grabs the lamppost there. So great acrobatics, great choreography here in the storytelling by Miller. So Turk here says he's going to tell Daredevil everything he knows about what's going on in the city. It's a contract, what's been handed down straight from the city's top crime bosses, a $5 million contract. But it ain't the money what makes it such a big deal, it's the hit, the target. The big boys are lining up every freelance gun around to kill one guy, the guy what used to run this town, the Kingpin. So Daredevil responds incredulously, the Kingpin? But he's retired. That's why those crime lords are in charge now. He's not even in the city. Turk says, the city, devil? He ain't even in the country. So we're going to find out where the Kingpin has been after these ads. And here we go. He's in Japan. So great establishing shot of the Kingpin's mansion in Japan. And this coincides with Miller's own interest in Japanese comics, manga at the time, in particular Lone Wolf and Cub. And you get to see some of that influence now filtering in to his work on Daredevil. First of all, we had Elektra and her use of Psy. And in this, we're going to see more of this Japanese influence on Miller's aesthetic and storytelling in this issue. So again, we've got these great, almost characteristic now, horizontal panels by Miller. Some of them open border, like this one and this one here. What we have is a training session for the Kingpin, and he's going up against 8 martial artists. So they attack him with all kinds of equipment, including nunchucks and a staff there. But the Kingpin is equal to them. And look how Miller just pairs back on any narrative captions here. There's no dialogue. Kingpin is fully concentrating on dealing with these 8 attackers. And it's brutal. Look at the size of his forearm and fist here, taking out these guys with punches to the jaw. Time, 17 seconds. And great top-down view of, I suppose we have to call it a dojo. And then the use of silhouettes too for the Kingpin and his assistant here. And one of these guys that he's just taken out says too much. He says here, I hear he got lots of practice back when he was the Kingpin. Kingpin hears that. Look at these distinctive silhouettes from the slats of the screens here on Kingpin. We're going to see a lot of that lighting in the comic. So Kingpin goes straight back to the guy, picks him up, smashes him on the ground, breaks his arm here, and ironically talks about how there is no Kingpin lout, not anymore. There is only Wilson Fisk. And this is the first time we learn the Kingpin's true name as well. Humble dealer of spices. So that's what he's been up to in Japan. An honest man, a quiet gentleman. And just the irony of the contradiction between what he's saying and the images we're seeing. And Glynis Wine here with her trademark red background, complementing a violent action in the panel. It's superb work from the whole team, working so well together. And then there arrives Kingpin's wife. So Vanessa arrives, and the Kingpin turns into a gentle lamb upon her arrival, and makes out that he's just tending to one of my men, beloved. He seems to have dislocated his shoulder during our workout. So more irony. And then we get the arrival of this character, who is Mr. Harrison of the United States Attorney. He's there to pick up files and evidence the Kingpin has on the crime bosses back in New York. Kingpin explains it here. Mr. Harrison is here to negotiate for certain files that I compiled as insurance against mutiny when I ruled the mobs. So this is Miller establishing Kingpin as shrewd and clever. Files which contain evidence that would incriminate the entire upper echelon of the East Coast underworld. So we get further explanation here, and Vanessa is going to fly to New York to acquire the services of Nelson and Murdoch, of course. Kingpin isn't up for that. He thinks it's too dangerous. He doesn't want her jeopardized, but she's going to head away to New York nonetheless. And one of Kingpin's assistants here thinks, that it's so odd that the broad has got the boss wrapped around her little finger. I remember back when nobody told the Kingpin what for. Yeah, I remember when. So this is all part of Miller picking up where the Kingpin left off in Marvel Comics, as I said earlier, as something of a joke of a Spider-Man third-rate villain, and he's building him up in this issue to be something much more than that, a deadlier character altogether, and it's coming. So, and Vanessa will be part of it. So then we switch to New York and the offices of Nelson and Murdoch, and Foggy's there. He's there all night. It's 7:30 in the morning, and Matt's wondering what's up, because Foggy never worked late. And he thinks to himself when Foggy says nothing's wrong, my super sensitive hearing detected a slight jump in his heartbeat. He's lying. So remember, Foggy recently married. What's he doing sleeping over at work? And somebody kicks in the door. Great top-down shot here of the office with the light coming in, all the chiaroscuro light and shade. And it turns out to be the Kingpin's bodyguard for his wife Vanessa. She's there to meet with Nelson and Murdoch, and she makes them an offer. My husband requires the finest legal representation available. We are prepared to pay you $200,000. So that takes Foggy by surprise, and Matt is thinking it over, and he's thinking he wants a big case like this. He wants to sink his teeth into a case like that. And then years of living with danger have trained this man to hear without listening, to respond reflexively to certain sounds. The sound of a steel magazine sliding into place, a hammer sharply cocked, a bullet sliding into its chamber. So he moves like lightning and saves Vanessa from being shot through the window, the storefront window of their legal office. And then he's away while everybody's confused, taking off his shirt, and he's got his Daredevil costume underneath. And up on the rooftop outside, there's this old villain, Bruno, who's out of jail. Daredevil attacks him. We've got a great action sequence here from Miller as well. But this guy, Bruno, he's old, he's out of shape, a little bit flabby. Daredevil kicks him, he falls off the building. So Daredevil thinking here, he's stumbling backward off the roof. No problem though, got you now with the nylon cable. Bruno, just relax, I'll reel you in. But the guy panics and he lashes out with his flamethrower. And of course that burns through the nylon cord, and he falls to his death straight down onto the pavement below. So Daredevil confirms it, no heartbeat. And then he's away back to the storefront to check his date book, because he's worried. He's putting it together. This bounty on the Kingpin has to be responsible for this guy getting in on the action and trying to take out Vanessa. And he's worried about a certain assassin being released from jail today. So we see him on the rooftop here, putting on his suit again. And we get the little details about how the billy club works. A double tap, and the upper section of the shaft curves to form the handle of a blind man's cane. Very cool. Then we're back in the office, and Lieutenant Manolis is there. And he says there's been a kidnapping. So While Daredevil was out dealing with Bruno on the rooftop, Vanessa was kidnapped, and the Kingpin's bodyguards are saying nothing. So Manolo says you're going to have to come back to the police station and answer his questions. And then the scene switches to the tombs, and the certain assassin is released. And we get in the narrative captions here. His trial was a joke. He had the best lawyers money could buy, who brought forth the most reputable medical experts to testify in his behalf. They testified that his crimes could have been the result of a previously undiscovered tumour in his brain, that the tumour might have induced temporary insanity, that now, with the tumour removed, it was possible that he was cured. And I love the way Joe Rosen here has bolded those modal verbs. And so, who is it? It is, of course, Bullseye. Oh, his name escaped me just there for a second. Bullseye. He's out, he's cleared, he's free. He has no friends, this Bullseye, no relatives, no loved ones, but he has a reputation. He's the world's deadliest assassin, and as long as he has a reputation, he'll always have clients. And here's this limo pulling up to take him in as a passenger. Daredevil's too late, he realizes it. All he can do now is follow them and pray for a chance to stop this madness. So, the scene switches to the skyscraper standing proudly 50 stories of stone and glass in the glow of a setting sun. And then we're inside into an uppermost office in a dark place. I love the lighting here with the Venetian blinds and the slats and the shadow, the light and shade cast from this overhead lighting down on top of the table and the chair here, and Bullseye standing directly under the light and then lighting up, and we get more of this light and shade from Miller. Really great work. And basically Bullseye starts negotiating with the crime bosses. He'll do the job for them, but for 10 million. So they agreed to it, and who else has made his way there stealthily except for Daredevil? He says, Bullseye, I can't let you do this. Just a few weeks ago I saved your life. I can't help but feel responsible for what you do with it. So Bullseye, smiling there, says, oh well, and now we're going to get a great action sequence. So the last time they fought in the previous issue, Bullseye wasn't, at his best because of the brain tumour. Now that's been removed. He's back to his best. Look at these couple of pages, just great action on these pages. And also look and see how Miller isn't crowding the art with narrative captions explaining anything. As a writer-artist, he knows the art is telling the story, and all he's adding is the dialogue, the banter between Bullseye and Daredevil. And also, look at this, great panel here, no border, Bullseye throwing these throwing stars at Daredevil, a new gimmick Daredevil picks up on, and again it's Miller with the Japanese influence coming into the comic, so adding the shuriken now to Bullseye's repertoire. And then he shoots the billy club out of Daredevil's hand. We've got this great DeLuca effect of Daredevil bouncing around, Bullseye dodging his shots, saying to Bullseye, you've run out of weapons, you're a sitting duck. Kicks him right in the face. Now we're down to 2 panels here where Bullseye says, but I'll never run out of weapons, Devil. I'll use the walls, the floor, and if they don't do the job, great line this, I'll use the whole city to kill you. As he kicks him out the window, and Daredevil's falling backwards, and he hasn't got his billy club, it's dropped out of his hands. So great shot here, great perspective as well. How's Daredevil going to get out of this one? Another couple of really cool pages coming up here from Miller. Great storytelling on these pages. Oh, sorry, he does have one side of his billy club, the one with the nylon cord, and he took 2 with him. That's the story detail. Miller worked it in. He did lose one, but he took a second one with him. So that's the one he's using here. And the nylon cable, remember earlier when we're told like his aim is infallible? Once again, a nylon cable is fired and finds its target. So, is Daredevil out of difficulty? But this time, there's a complication. It's different now, up against Bullseye. I won't let you off that easy, he says. Happy landings, and he shoots the cable. So now Daredevil is falling. 50 stories, remember. So he's there thinking cable's useless. It's 30 stories straight down at this point. And he says, I've had it unless the wind whipping around the flagpole, if I can just. So he grabs the flag and it breaks. And I love the illustration of the reverberation of the flagpole. That was something that Miller did always really well. So he's falling with the flag, and his radar sense, he gets the sense of a shape jutting from the wall, some kind of gargoyle below him there. And he grabs the head of it, the statue's head, and he thinks he's safe now, but the head breaks off, and then he falls. How many stories down? Is it 10 stories down? He tries to relax his body with the truck. Clump. He's into the back of this truck. And is he okay? The drivers heard something, but they drive on. As Daredevil lies battered, unconscious, somewhere between life and death, events transpire which will place in deadly peril the city he's sworn to protect. And what are those events? Well, it is a series of rumors. They start with a rumor on the Lower East Side. It spreads quickly, whispered beneath lampposts, murmured over 100 glasses of beer in a dozen sleazy bars, coughed out between lungfuls of cigarette smoke and musty pool holes. Soon the word is out, the Kingpin is coming. So we've got these thugs here beating this guy, one of the Kingpin's operators, who gives up the fact that the Kingpin is coming in the morning by plane to a farm on Staten Island. So they're waiting there for him. And I love that just detailed, like Joe Rosen adding "and so" onto the sun there. And so you've got this idyllic view of the farm, but we have these assassins lying in wait for the arrival of the Kingpin. The plane lands, but it's empty. Must have been on remote. So the guy realizes, get back. It was a bomb. So the plane explodes. All the assassins are taken out, and here's the real plane with the Kingpin on board. Great art on this page. He lands. The farm is ablaze. And his assistant here says, "It worked, boss. Louis talked just like you said he would and set him up for the kill. You still got it, boss." "Yes," he says. I'd forsworn all this. I'd reformed out of my love for Vanessa. But now, though it sickens me, I must use the old skills again. I must kill again out of that same love. They have the men, the guns, the money, but I'm the Kingpin. I created the criminal empire that they presume to rule. I can bring it down piece by piece. And if Vanessa is harmed, I will. The city will suffer a gang war bloodier than any it has ever seen. My enemies will die, each and every one. And there he is lighting his cigarette, and you get that classic Frank Miller after Will Eisner lighting of Kingpin. And Kingpin now has been reformed from being a joke of a Spider-Man villain into a proper badass antagonist for Daredevil. Done in one issue, 21 pages of story and art. Excellent work by Miller. The letters here are all about issue 167 here and 68, the introduction of Elektra. Lots of positivity on Elektra's introduction. There you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Frank Miller's Daredevil number 170. If you did, please like the video in YouTube. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.